This is the biggest story tomorrow, but I'll give them a sporting chance also to just comment on what is happening right now in West Pokot, just to send also their condolences to the people who've lost their loved ones in West Pokot. Let's just begin with you, Richard Onyonka.
Thank you, Dibal. First of all, I would wish to pass my condolences to the people in West Pokot. Very unfortunately, once again, we are at it. What normally happens in our country is that some of these events which are actually predictable, we don't seem to be in a position to either mitigate or deal with the events that follow such eventualities. For very many years, we've been trying to look for a way on how we can purchase an early warning system.
Yes.
Because it's available. Actually using satellite. A satellite is designed, land topography satellites are designed in such a manner that it would even show when the movement is taking place. It will show where the heavy rains are going to hit. Such areas will be mapped. So nationally and naturally, intelligent people would be preparing the public and telling them, look, move out of those areas because the way the rains are coming, we are having a problem. Go to the high areas or go to safe areas. We have a problem with, for example, in Kenya, if you had a tsunami, we don't even have a way on how that tsunami would be detected other than the National Meteorological Department making an announcement and saying we expect heavy rains coming, and sometimes they're even wrong. And I think let us begin to behave like people who are smart, which most Kenyans are. Most Kenyans work in institutions which I'm sure you've heard. They work in the World Meteorological Department. They work in the International Weather Serving Stations in Geneva. And the technology is available in terms of training. The only technology that we don't have is the scientific technology, which then will help us investigate, will help us mitigate, so that such, when flash floods come,
Yes,
or when landslides take place, we should have by now have moved our people from the dangerous areas into the safer areas.
Yes.
And the problem is, as usual, this event is going to take place. People are going to send condolences. Politicians will make a few speeches. People who are supposed to be responsible will say, this is something that happened beyond our control, and therefore let us go for prayers. And that will be it. So my feeling is that it is high time we actually, as a country, invested in the early warning systems.
Early warning systems.
Yes.
But we've always been talking about this debate on the National Disaster Management Bill.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
For the last 10 good years.
That is true.
Dr. Nyikal, I think by then you were the Director of Medical Services. Are you aware about this disaster management bill as it is?
Not the bill itself, but what I'm aware of is an attempt to get a national emergency response system. That was there as far back as...
But we have a bill in Parliament. That is what I'm asking for.
It hasn't gone through. That bit we know.
It hasn't gone through for...
I can't tell you exactly what stage it is in now. But what I know, it has not appeared before.
But it stayed there. It is
somewhere.
Still, for the last 10 good years.
Yes.
Do you think that is really shocking in light of what we're actually going through? I mean, many things have happened even before that we know really deserves now to see maybe this particular bill being steamrolled.
Yeah, really, I think I can't disagree with you. That's something that should have been done a long time ago. The need for it was seen, efforts were made, and up to now it hasn't come. So I think it's our responsibility to track out this bill and find out.
Richard Onyonka, you've been in Parliament for, I know, for those years.
Yes.
You might be privy to this, and you can tell us more about this particular bill. Why is it not really getting any traction for the last 10 good years?
Dibal, I'll tell you, our Parliament is a very interesting place, or even, in fact, our government. This is a bill which the government presented a while ago. I think it was about 7 years ago. And every time...
It's more than 7 years.
Yes. And every time this matter is brought for debate, it's brought for discussion, we discuss it, reach halfway through, and it is shelved. And for the simple reason that we have actually never taken disaster management and we've never taken such events very, very seriously.
Yes.
And that is why I'm explaining that these are the things which the people who are responsible, the ministries that are, I think the Ministry of Interior is actually responsible. We now need to have an early warning system which deals with issues such as this. The issues include flooding.
Yes.
The issues include heavy rains, all right, which takes place, which results into the flooding taking place, earthquakes, all right. All these events which are events which take place, quote unquote, by accident,
Yes.
need to be mitigated, and we need to have a preparedness which then allows us to actually come up with systems and structures and come up with, for example, the emergency management system in
Yes.
the country. Nobody even knows what it is. I think I remember where there was a time when I was in the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations. And in fact, if today, and I always keep saying this inevitably, if today, and I hope somebody doesn't ask me what have I done about it, if today you had a major fire on KICC, I actually don't think we have enough capacity to fight that fire. And it's not just KICC, which is the tallest building in Nairobi.
Thank you.
And this is where we are as a nation.
As a nation. Let's hear from Herman Manyora. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Shu. A little rainy and cold, but so it's okay. You see, Kenyans live like 19th century people, actually 18th century. We allow things that other people managed ages ago to ravage us. You know, things that were difficult to handle in the 17th and 16th century.
Yes.
But which stopped to be a bother to people in Europe and elsewhere by the year 1800. For example, the agrarian revolution brought food security. People stopped relying on rain. That is over 200 years ago. We are still suffering. Whenever there is rain, we are in problems. Whenever there is drought, we are in problems. No, we are 17th century, actually not even 19th century. We are 17th century men. It is bad. But what is worse, the bar, is that Kenyans are on their own. You might think that it is because these are natural things, acts, or they are called acts of God, like that the government has no control over how much rain there is and therefore how much damage or a drought. But that's not true. People face very serious things in America, for example. You might think it is that, but how about poison we eat in terms of food? People are busy ripening bananas and other fruits using chemicals that cause cancer, and the government is just there. Supermarkets are stocked. We have been shown by including things you did here. Supermarkets are stocked with expired foodstuffs with dangerous elements. Then we say this sugar has all manner of dangerous chemicals, and then 5,000 sacks of the same, bags of the same disappear. Look, Kenyans are on their own. The government simply doesn't care about Kenyans. And it is a very sad state of affairs. It's like parents, a mother and father who don't even care what happened to their 6 children. Where they sleep, what they eat, nothing. What neighbors do to them. Look here. A country's government ought to be like chicken, mother chicken, who takes care of the chicks and fights the hawk, even if you approach there.
Yes.
You are a human being with all the power, but it will jump on you, a mother hen. That's how a government ought to behave. But this country, honestly, Kenyans are on their own, and it's very, very unfortunate. Yeah.
Right, so you might also want to maybe pass your message of condolences.
Yeah,
to
so I think it is something when I saw it. When I saw it, it touched my heart, and the people of this country really, and the county in particular, we say we are together. Poleni, Mungu atakuwa na nyinyi.
Alice Ohome, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Dubai.
Yeah,
and the viewers. I think I would join my colleagues who have spoken to pass my message of condolence to the people of West Pokot. Sadly, I think we've lost quite a number, and even the pain and the thereafter events of maybe sleeping in this rain outside, no food, no blanket. I think as a country we should be ashamed of ourselves. Disaster after disaster, and we've not come up with a solution. It's every time you see the first person to appear is the AMLEF, and for sure that cannot be the government
and Kenya
effort.
Red Cross, yes.
And Red Cross. It's not, cannot be the government effort. And this bill that you've talked about came to Parliament even last time, and we discussed. It wasn't tidy. I remember I was sitting in the Security Committee that time, Administration and Security Committee. The national government coordination actually, you know, is the one in charge. The Interior Ministry is
Interior
in charge.
Ministry, okay.
The Interior Ministry is, of course, there will be. It's a multi. Disciplinary matter, but the main coordinator is the national government through the Interior Ministry. So I would say I think the Interior Ministry must take responsibility on behalf of the government, and we how else can we express if this kind of a scenario, if this kind of a disaster is not sufficient to send the right message to the government? I think, of course, Parliament has a big role to play, because any member of Parliament can take up the matter and push. But, you know, it's not something that a private bill, member's bill, can actually succeed, because you need, this is a state issue. It's a government issue.
Yes.
You need all effort or goodwill from the government, and that's why we have not succeeded. That's what I would say, because, I mean, you know, you even need to create a fund to be able to respond, emergencies,
a rapid
equipment,
response,
rapid response. All these things require that the government is right at the center, in the middle, with huge resources in it. So therefore, even if you came up with a bill without the support and the willingness of the government to be part of the, you can't explain why. I just want to
So
say
where exactly is the bill at right now? First reading, second reading?
At the moment, I don't know, because it has not come to this particular Parliament. I haven't seen it, this particular Parliament. Unless it has come to the committee, I haven't seen it on the floor. It was in the last Parliament. But this particular Parliament, the 12th Parliament, I haven't seen it.
But what happens to the continuity of bills? Does it really stop because now this particular Parliament has, has ceded to exist anymore? Then we come up with new bills?
There are even conflicts and disagreements within ministries when it comes to how you share some of these functions. And therefore, when you have people who are not thinking on behalf of the interest, others are seeing how they can retain. Some ministries or ministers or accounting officers are seeing how they can retain the largest kitty of the, those kind of mediocre small wars normally become the biggest challenge. So I don't want to sit here and say that I'm sure where it is. But the point is, the fact that we don't have it, it means we are not debating it even around this. You haven't had it this year being debated. So there is a problem. The government must tell Kenyans through this particular disaster where the bill is, and by now the minister should be telling us, the Minister for Interior Security should by now be telling Kenyans why we don't have the disaster and risk management. Is
it the honors of you as well as the Member of Parliament to do that, actually to bring it to the floor of the House and yes, to push it? Because we expect you to do that.
Let me, Dibal, maybe you didn't get what I said. I said this is not, Parliament doesn't move on its own. Parliament moves together with the government, because the largest aspect of parliamentary work is to support government work and proposals. And I said this, because even when we discussed it, it was unique in the way that it is not a single ministry that will deal with this. And therefore, even if you came with a bill quickly there, this is a very huge, detailed work.
Thank you. So, let's drop in also Governor Professor Onyonka. Good morning, good to see you.
Morning.
Of course, we are actually just expressing also our condolences and deepest sympathies as well to the county of West Pokot, where we can see also Senator Samuel Pogisu is absent today because now he has to really attend to what is happening on the ground as well. So that number is bound to rise. It stands at 46, but according to the governor, that is Longanyapo is saying that more bodies could be trapped, underneath the mud.
These are
So,
the people
so
recovered.
Yeah.
these are just the
Largely the people recovered. But there are people who may have been swept under
And,
and still not yet.
yes. So
recovered.
that is just a sort of a ballpark figure, so to speak.
Well, I'm sorry I came in the middle of the conversation, but two things are important here. One, that we really haven't really gotten a grip of climate change and global warming.
Yes.
And its impact on our own ecology. I think it's a much bigger thing than we have really talked about and grappled with and made policies to respond. And secondly, given this trend of global warming, climate change, and so on, and as my sister over there says, we should have to think ahead of time, to plan, to forecast. Now, you may find that there are certain areas where people should not live.
Yes.
People should be moved to live in other areas because of the dangers of living in those areas.
Yes.
This is a major public policy, and which would involve both the national and county government. And it has happened in certain nations that a time comes when you find that, okay, traditionally you lived here, you have done this one, but the mode of life that has been done before climate change cannot continue when climate change is there and global warming is there. So people need to change their mode of life. Now, this will not become easy because basically we are all very conservative when it comes to the way we live. You like to stay where you are and do the things that you've always been doing. But if the future is threatened and like we have seen now, maybe involve us in a discussion. Should we just go ahead and repair the homes and so on, or should we look at a much bigger picture that this problem is much bigger, that if we continue like that, there can be even a bigger flood,
Yes.
a bigger crack on the surface of the earth, as
Yes.
it were, in that particular place. So I really think that this should be a big warning to both the government and the people, really, that something has gone haywire
Yes.
in the global order of things in terms of climate and so on, and that the patterns of rains have changed. For example, now it's raining very heavily. I don't remember in the past that it rained very heavily in November. Okay, and it's becoming very cold. I went to my rural home the other day. It was very cold. I mean, I said, now this is strange. Yeah, it's very strange that it's very cold in my village
Yes.
at this point in time. So I think that using science and using technology, we should be able to see further into the future and say, look, this is what we need to be doing now to avoid more disasters in the future.
Right, but I understand also the counties, they have an initiative with the World Bank when it comes to climate-smart sort of farming and how to mitigate also the ravages of climate change. I don't know what is happening. Are you privy to this as well?
Yes, I'm
because
privy to this.
they were saying that the counties also have been a bit slow off the market trying to pick up some of the funds that are being given, or they've not really spent the funds that are...
Look, really, counties had been there for only 7 or 8 years, and these are big ideas. But these are not simple things, and to develop the capacity to respond to climate change. I was looking at our climate change policy the other day. I mean, it requires a lot of thinking. It requires a lot of experts, So the capacity to respond to climate change should be something that approached nationally, an intergovernmental initiative. To begin the blame game that counties have not picked up funds. I don't think it's a question of funds. It's a question of policy, a question of approach. Funds come as a means of implementing a viable policy, to drive the nation in a certain direction. But you see, if we just respond to development partners' pressure, of course they are right to put pressure, but the thing should be put into a global picture of the nation. How are we as a nation approaching climate change and the possibilities of changing our own agricultural practices,
Yes.
our own mode of transportation? This is why I really think that we should really be building railways rather than roads, because roads can easily be shaken by rains and all those kind of, you see. But if you build railways with proper technology, look at Europe. In spite of all these changes in the weather and whatnot, railways still function very well. But even roads in Europe have problems sometimes, You remember this huge expressway from England to France? You know, when it was done, it was, you know, but sometimes there's problem because of this, you know, global warming business. So I really think that one, looking ahead, I would say one of the major means of transport that we should encourage in both our cities and nationally is railroad transport. Okay, how we do it, how we sustain it, and how we, that is a practical thing that we need to approach. But look, we must look into the future, far ahead, 50 years from today, how people will live in this nation. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Maybe Dr. Nyikali, you want to say something? I can see
what
you
I want
stringing
to
at the
say-
leash to do so before we go to the next story.
Well, let me also say,
But
pass
let me
my
say
con-
before I go, because I'm really sorry, I would like to pass my condolences to the people of West Pokot.
Yes.
Particularly the governor, who is a friend of mine. We were in the Senate together. He calls himself the king. I'm his ambassador in the Lake region.
Let me start by giving apologies to the people of West Pokot. But I think all has been said. But what is important is really in an issue like this, you must have an overarching policy. Then the counties can take from there. Yeah. As I was trying to say earlier, there was a major operation about 5 years ago, even more than 5 years ago, to actually set a national operations center where there would be a multi-sectoral response. And this was actually intended at that time, that was quite before the devolution, was be intended to go to all the provinces, so they would have these operational centers which would have early warning systems, which would know the danger areas, which would know if this happens, who responds and when. And we would have, in this country now, we don't even have an emergency number that if you call, you can send anything. We used to have 999, I think we tried to get it back. So it is emergency preparedness. Environmental change just says you must be prepared for emergencies, even if they are not predictable. In fact, emergency preparedness implies that you must deal with things that are not predictable, that were not foreseen. That is where we need to be. Policy at the level taken up by the counties, basically.
All right, let's wind it up with you, Richard Onyonka. So maybe you might really want to find out where this particular bill is at, because Alice says she has not seen the bill in the House as it is right now. Is it now domiciled at the Ministry of Interior, or where is it? Then we can try and push the envelope.
Actually, I suspect the bill is with the ministry, unless the ministry brings it back and then it's put on the order paper for us to then begin the interrogation and drafting of the bill. The problem, like my colleague has said, it should be a government bill, right? But I think it's something that we need to look at. It's something we need to follow up. The truth is that our country needs to be prepared, and we are not ready. This has been going on and on and on. There is technology, like I've said, which brings out the early preparedness, which can show where, using satellite technology, how flooding is going to take place, even when we are having drought. These days, you can actually predict from a period of close to 6 or even 7 months when you expect the drought to take place. And that technology is available, but we are doing nothing about it.
But I think we seem to be forgetting something about. You see, you are trying to imagine where Nyikal talks about science, where we respect science, we respect professionalism, where there is order. All these things actually are there. I don't know what we are. We don't even need what do you call it? A bill.
A bill for it.
Early warning signs, these things have been there from, I don't know, the 70s when you were fighting the locusts. There's nothing we don't have. What people want is like when they say El Nino is coming and they give 16 billion. Where did that 16 billion go? Because that El Nino didn't come about 3 or so years ago. Or some little money to mitigate drought, there is 8 billion. Use emergency fund. There have been that's what Kenyans want. But even as Governor Anyang' Nyong'o tells you about these things being long-term, and which I agree with, he must also tell you one of the reasons why they are not very enthusiastic, the government and especially counties, about World Bank funded projects, is that they come with a lot of conditionalities. World Bank funds have conditions that you must use these funds in this manner, using this way, you cannot mix it with another fund, you know. And they are not very excited about those kind of funds. And therefore, not just for disaster, not just for anything, even urban development and those kind of things, those funds are not absorbed by counties because of the conditionalities, because of the order and the organized manner in which that must be done. So people want money which they can quickly.
I don't really think
And
so.
that one is what they want, and they are given occasionally.
I don't think so. I think, for example, I mean, I don't agree with that because, for example, if you take the World Bank Fund, Kenya Urban Roads.
Yeah, you have a World Bank fund right now.
Yeah,
in
Kenya
Kisumu,
Urban Roads.
and it's working.
Fund that is for building roads in counties and so on. It's working. I mean, I don't think you can make a general statement that counties, because of these conditionalities. Conditionalities have been there for a long time in the World Bank funding system. And I don't blame them. I mean, they're a bank, they must have their conditions. But then when you're receiving, you negotiate. You say, look, if this is going to meet this objective, this is the way we want it. I mean, just the other day when Naivasha or some governors discussing the World Bank over these roads funds, and there are a lot of things that were adjusted because we said, look, what we want are results. Management must have evidence of doing something concretely, objectively. So just giving funds and putting it in your report that you are given funds is not enough. We are also interested in the outcome of how this fund is used. If the conditionalities hinder the meeting of the objectives of these funds, then the conditionalities should be rationally changed. But this will promote the objectives of using these funds so far the better. I mean, look, I don't think that governors are morons that must only get things that they can. I mean, we have held responsible positions in this nation and done much bigger things. So when it comes to
being
account-
governors.
Yes, than being governors. I mean, this myth about being a governor, I think it is, to me, I think, kind of taken too far. I mean, if I was to be a governor just to receive funds and misuse them, I would not do that because at this time in my life, why would I want to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.